What's up, YouTube? So day 3 was for the books. So little context. I'm working a full-time job Monday through Friday, and then on the weekend I'm working overnight at another job, another part-time job, and I'm working there from 11 to 7 a.m. Last night was my first night working overnight while learning how to code, and it was a mad productive night. Honestly, definitely went through it. Definitely went over the 2-hour time box that I set for myself, which I'm glad, because I felt like that wasn't enough time per day. But yeah, I make up in the lack of time by consistently doing it every day, though, because I plan on doing this 7 days a week instead of just like 5 times a week. So we went through a lot last night. Let me just read it off. We started with, where were we at? Use attribute selectors to style elements. I think that's where we left off. So yeah, learn that. Understand absolute versus relative units. Style the HTML body element. And let me take that back. I don't want to say I learned it because I'm still learning. You know what I mean? Always that apprentice mentality that, yeah, just being open-minded. Let's put that out there. And continuing on, we did inherit styles from the body element, prioritize one style over another, override styles and subsequent CSS, override classic declarations by style and ID attributes, override class declaration with inline styles, override all other styles by using important use hex code for specific colors. My thing with the hex code is it's pretty crazy how it's 16 million combinations, and I'll definitely assume we're not going to memorize that and we just, Google the hex code color, 6-digit, that we'd have to know. Use abbreviated hex code. Abbreviated hex code, I think it was still a large number for sure. I think it was like over maybe 2,000 to 3,000 or something like that, or maybe I'm way off. But also use RGB values to color elements. Use RGB to mix colors. Use CSS variables to change several elements at once. Create a custom CSS variable. Use a custom CSS variable. Attach a fallback value to a CSS variable. Improve compatibility with browser fallbacks. Cascading CSS variables. Change variable for a specific area. Use a media query to change a variable. All very cool stuff. Again, that was mainly in the style element. Just writing code in between the style, opening and closing tag. That's where most of that was at, and just needing to know where to place the code as far as like what's the ID and etc. Just knowing what to place first and what the format for that type of, for whatever it was. Introduction. Alright, so I finished that and actually finished the whole next part of this course. Responsive Web Design Certification, 300 hours. So day 1 and 2 we completed HTML, and day 2 we finished HTML and CSS. Day 3 we ended up finishing the rest of the CSS, and then actually ended up finishing all of the next module, which is 3 out of 8 modules to complete this responsive web design certification. That's 300 hours, quote unquote. So trying to knock this out in a week, that would be great. So I'm like super hype about that pretty much ahead of track. Maybe able to do this faster than I thought, but then again, haven't hit a wall yet. So the thing that scares me is when we get into this super advanced computer math I'm gonna need to know, and I plan on doing online courses for that separately to better understand that portion instead of just kind of seeing how it's done. I would go deeper into that before when I hit that wall. So we'll get there. So we ended up finishing the whole applied visual design, which was, I'm going to read it off here: create visual balance using the text align property, adjust the width of an element using the width property, adjust the height of an element using the height property, use the strong tag to make text bold, use the U tag to underline text, use the EM tag to italicize text, use the S tag to strike through text, create a horizontal line using the HR element, adjust the background color property of text, adjust the size of a header versus a paragraph tag, add a box shadow to a card-like element, decrease the opacity of an element, use the text transform property to make text uppercase, set the font size for multiple head elements, set the font weight for multiple heading elements, set the font size for paragraph text, set the line height of paragraphs, adjust the hover state of an anchor tag, which was really cool. The hover state, and it was like a pseudo like anchor. That was pretty cool. Just yeah, that part was cool. I remember that. Use an element's relative position. Move a relatively positioned element with CSS offsets. Lock an element to its parent with absolute positioning. Lock an element to a browser window with fixed positioning. Push the element left or right with the float property. Change the position of overlapping elements with the z-index property. Center an element horizontally using a margin property. Learn about complementary colors. Learn about I forget how to even say this. Terry colors? Way off. Just completely mispronounced that, I'm sure. However, we just do this in one take, and this is documenting the process, so it is what it is. Adjust the color of various elements of complementary colors, adjust the hue of a color, adjust tone of a color. This is all great knowledge for like Photoshop. So yeah, just randomly throwing that out there, which it really was, honestly, learning about the complementary colors, just opposite spectrums of the chart. Use a CSS linear gradient to create a stripped element. Create texture by adding subtle pattern as a background image. Use a CSS transform scale property to change the size of an element. Use a CSS transform property skew x to skew an element along the x-axis. Use the CSS transform property skew y to skew an element along the y-axis. This was a lot of this was still in a style element, but just like positioning things in different ways. We saw the hover, now this, the skew x, y axis, and then where was it at? Like relative positioning, absolute position, all that. So it's kind of similar, well, not similar, but similar like attributes of changing the design. Let's put it that way. So yeah, create a graphic using CSS. Create a more complex shape using CSS and HTML. Learn how CSS at keyframes and animation properties work. This was a lot in this section. I mean, just thinking back, we learned about art practically. And then this segue here, I was surprised again, the animation so early. Well, learning about it, I mean, we're not writing the whole code to how that animation, like how to create the animation, but more so we see the animation code and how many text lines it is, just for the simple animation graphics, and then we're adding in like a little piece and just seeing how it changes everything. That's really cool to see it that way instead of just diving into that from like the HTML section where it's just blank and you're literally starting with nothing. So I do like the aspect of we get to see how the code would be and just changing it and seeing how it changes what's there. That's really cool. But yeah, again, this is actually the longest part in the responsive web design certification, 300 hours. Like, this is the longest module with the most like all these questions that I'm reading off, and I'm not even done reading all of them yet. So yeah, we are at, there's a few more that I didn't list, but it's pretty much all about the animation parts. And yeah, I'm just psyched that was my first day of coding overnight at work, yeah, I was definitely just on the grind, just coding, learn how to code. And yeah, I literally couldn't even stop thinking about coding like all day, and it's really been like a burning desire at this moment. So I don't know. I'm just still drinking from a fire hose, as I said. We'll see how that keeps up. 21 days, and then 6 weeks. That's usually when people fall off. So I plan on being around. And this was day 3's vlog. I hope you guys enjoyed it, got some value out of it, and I hope you guys have a great day. Peace out.